The haunting drone of the ship's horn echoed throughout Aurora 7, the Terran naval station hovering near Arcanus. Lieutenant Marcus Reed stood at attention, his newly pressed uniform feeling stiff against his skin. The ceremonial deck was filled with officers arranged in perfect formation, the smell of plasma smoke and ion mist still lingering from the recent battle. Today was supposed to be his moment of glory, a simple ceremony to recognize his bravery during the liberation of Arcanus campaign. Marcus kept his eyes forward, attempting to maintain his composure despite the anticipation building in his chest. He expected a standard reward, a medal of service or perhaps some leave time. What he didn't expect was her. When the doors to the ceremonial hall slid open, the crowd fell silent. Colonel Heron entered first, followed by a slender figure with silvery blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's cold lights. She moved with otherworldly grace, her silver-woven hair cascading down her shoulders in intricate patterns that marked her as Arcanesian nobility. "Lieutenant Marcus Reed," Colonel Heron announced, his voice carrying across the hall. "For exceptional courage displayed during the Arcanus campaign, the Terran Republic awards you this Medal of Valor." The medal was pinned to Marcus's chest in a perfunctory manner. Then, with a gesture that seemed almost rehearsed, Colonel Heron motioned to the blue-skinned woman. "And as a token of our new alliance with Arcanus, you are presented with Lyra Thale, a war bride of noble Arcanesian lineage." Marcus felt his breath catch. The woman, Lyra, stepped forward and lowered her head slightly in what appeared to be a formal greeting. Her eyes, large and piercing, met his with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then, as she approached close enough that only he could hear, she whispered 4 words that sent a chill down his spine. "You are in danger." The ceremony continued around him, but Marcus barely registered it. His mind raced with questions. Was this some kind of joke? A threat? He glanced at Colonel Heron, whose expression remained impassive. "Sir," Marcus managed to say, once the formalities concluded, "I'm not sure I understand. Is this an honor or—" Colonel Heron's eyes narrowed slightly. "It's both, Lieutenant. Miss Thale will accompany you on future missions. She is now your responsibility to protect." His tone left no room for discussion. As they left the ceremonial hall, Marcus stole glances at Lyra. Her face was a careful mask, revealing nothing, but her eyes constantly scanned their surroundings. The words she had whispered continued to echo in his mind. "You are in danger." The assignment to the transport ship Aurelia came quickly. They would be departing for Central Military Port, located on the Marat continent, the political and commercial hub of the Terran Arcanus Alliance. Marcus was instructed to prepare Lyra for her role as a peace ambassador upon arrival. The Aurelia was an aging vessel, its corridors dimly lit with occasionally flickering LEDs that reminded Marcus of an irregular heartbeat. Lyra remained mostly silent during the first day of their journey, answering direct questions with minimal responses, sometimes in Arcanesian that required translation. "Why did you warn me?" Marcus finally asked when they were alone in his assigned quarters. "What danger am I in?" Lyra's eyes darted to the corner of the room where a small surveillance node blinked. "The walls have ears," she said softly. "Not everything is as it seems." Marcus followed her gaze and noticed something odd. The door to his quarters closed more slowly than standard protocol dictated. The hallway lights outside flickered in an unusual pattern. Small discrepancies, but enough to raise suspicion in someone trained to notice details. Sleep evaded him that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Lyra's whispered warning. Was she truly trying to help him, or was she manipulating him for some unknown purpose? And if there was danger, where was it coming from? Lieutenant Harper, Marcus's subordinate officer, made no effort to hide his resentment the following day. "So you get a war bride with an office appointment," he remarked with poorly disguised jealousy. "Must be nice to have exotic company while the rest of us file reports." "She's not," Marcus began, then stopped himself. "It's not like that. She's a diplomatic assignment." Harper snorted. "Sure. Just remember who your real allies are. Lieutenant." He cast a suspicious glance toward Lyra, who stood silently at the viewport, seemingly lost in the endless starscape. Later, when Harper had left, Lyra approached Marcus. "Do not let his words deceive you," she said quietly. "He envies what he doesn't understand." "And what exactly doesn't he understand?" Marcus asked, frustration edging his voice. Lyra's expression remained unreadable. "They didn't just want me. They want you too." "Who's they?" Marcus demanded, but Lyra turned away, refusing to elaborate. That evening, Marcus discovered discrepancies in the ship's command data. Troop schedules and prize counts were partially redacted. When he accessed the operations log, he found gaps in the surveillance footage. Someone had been tampering with the records. The ship's network detected what they called a ghost, an algorithm copying echo frequencies that could be used to falsify communications. This suggested a sophisticated operation designed to manipulate information. Marcus confronted Lyra with his findings. "Is this what you meant by danger? Someone's interfering with our systems?" "It goes deeper than you know," she replied, her voice barely audible. "There are those who would sacrifice peace for power." When the Aurelia approached the ion storm near Marat, things quickly deteriorated. The ship lurched violently as it encountered the electromagnetic disturbance, throwing warning lights across all decks. The life support systems began to fail, oxygen levels dropping dangerously. "We need to get to the emergency controls," Marcus shouted over the blaring alarms. "The backup generators aren't engaging." Lyra followed him through the chaotic corridors, helping to stabilize injured crew members along the way. When they reached the engineering bay, they found it deserted. The technicians had evacuated when the primary systems failed. "I need to manually reset the generators," Marcus explained, opening the access panel. "Can you monitor the oxygen levels?" To his surprise, Lyra moved confidently to the control station, her fingers dancing over the unfamiliar Terran technology with unexpected skill. "The primary relay is damaged," she observed. "We'll need to bypass it through the secondary circuit." Working together, they managed to restore partial power and stabilize the life support systems. As the crisis subsided, Marcus found himself looking at Lyra with new eyes. "How did you know how to do that?" he asked. "My people are not as primitive as yours believe," she replied simply. "We understand more than we let on." The shared crisis had created an unexpected bond between them. As they sat together in the quiet aftermath, Marcus found himself telling Lyra about his childhood on Earth's colonies, his reasons for joining the Navy, and his growing disillusionment with the endless conflicts. Lyra listened without judgment. Her silver-blue features softened in the dim emergency lighting. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a warmth he hadn't heard before. "Our worlds are not so different," Marcus read. "We both seek truth in a universe that often conceals it." When they finally docked at the central military port on Marat, Marcus received new orders. He was to deliver Lyra to Continental Headquarters for her peace liaison assignment. However, his growing suspicions made him hesitant to comply without question. He attempted to contact his superior officers about the data discrepancies he'd discovered, but found his communications mysteriously rerouted. When he finally reached Colonel Heron, the response was immediate and firm. "Disregard any anomalies in the data. Lieutenant, focus on your assignment and leave intelligence matters to those qualified to handle them." Regional General Marlin, who had been copied on the communication, added his own directive. "The transition period always creates irregularities in data streams. Your questioning of established protocols borders on insubordination." The warning was clear: stop asking questions. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. He decided to trust his instincts, and increasingly, to trust Lyra. "We need to find out what's really going on," he told her, as they prepared to disembark. "Instead of delivering you to headquarters, we're going to make a detour." Lyra nodded, her expression revealing relief. "The central military port has been compromised. The new command doesn't really trust you." Together, they formulated a plan to access the classified archives beneath the government headquarters, a facility known as Safe House Zero. Navigating the sprawling metropolis of Marat proved challenging. The continent was divided between the commercial opulence of Sunflash District and the shadowy operations of Darkside District, where military and political machinations took place behind secure facades. As they approached the government complex, security drones began tracking their movements. Marcus used his officer credentials to pass the initial checkpoints, but knew their unauthorized presence would soon be flagged. "We need to move quickly," he whispered to Lyra. "The identification system will eventually realize we're not following my assigned route." Lyra surprised him again with her knowledge of the facility. "There's a service entrance on the eastern perimeter," she explained. "The biometric scanners there are calibrated for maintenance personnel. They have lower security thresholds." Using Marcus's military override codes and Lyra's unexpected facility with the security protocols, they managed to access the lower levels of the complex. The temperature dropped noticeably as they descended toward Safe House Zero, their breath forming small clouds in the increasingly frigid air. "How do you know so much about this place?" Marcus asked, as they navigated the dimly lit corridors. "My people have been watching yours for longer than you realize," Lyra replied cryptically. "Knowledge is our greatest defense." They had nearly reached the archive when alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Security doors slammed shut around them, and the sound of boots echoed from the corridor ahead. "They've detected us," Marcus hissed, pulling Lyra into a maintenance alcove. Before they could plan their next move, armed guards surrounded them. Despite Marcus's attempts to assert his military authority, they were separated and escorted to different holding areas. Marcus found himself in a stark interrogation room, facing the cold stare of Regional General Marlin. "Lieutenant Reed," Marlin began, his voice clinically detached, "you've become a problem." "Sir, I was simply disobeying direct orders, compromising a peace asset, accessing restricted areas without authorization." Marlin listed the charges without emotion. "The question is why?" "I discovered irregularities in the data from Arcanus," Marcus replied, choosing his words carefully. "I was concerned about potential security breaches." "Your concern is noted," Marlin said dismissively. "What we require now is your cooperation. Confirm that the Arcanesian woman is a willing peace collaborator, not a contaminated asset, and this incident will be overlooked." Marcus remained silent, weighing his options. He knew instinctively that agreeing would somehow endanger Lyra. "I need time to consider my statement," he finally said. Marlin's expression hardened. "Time is a luxury you don't have, Lieutenant. If you cannot provide satisfactory answers voluntarily, we have other methods of verification." The threat was clear. Marcus had until morning before they would use mind toxins to extract the information they wanted. Left alone in the interrogation room, he searched desperately for a way out, but the doors were sealed, and continuous surveillance made any escape attempt futile. Hours passed in isolation. Just as Marcus began to lose hope, the lights in his cell flickered and went out. In the sudden darkness, he heard the soft hiss of the door sliding open. "We must hurry," Lyra's voice came from the blackness. "They're preparing the verification protocol for you." "How did you—" "No time," she cut him off, pressing something cold and metallic into his hand. "Use this to disrupt the biometric scanners. We have minutes at most before the backup systems engage." Moving through the darkened corridors of the government complex, they narrowly avoided security patrols dispatched to investigate the power failure. Lyra led with unexpected confidence, navigating the labyrinthine facility as though she had memorized its layout. "The archives are 3 levels down," she whispered as they reached a service elevator. "We need access codes." Marcus hesitated. "Using my credentials now will immediately alert security to our location." "We have no choice," Lyra insisted. "What we seek is worth the risk." The descent to Safe House Zero felt eternal. When the doors finally opened, they emerged into a cavernous chamber filled with secured data terminals and preservation units. The temperature had dropped even further, their exhalations forming dense clouds in the frigid air. "What exactly are we looking for?" Marcus asked, scanning the endless rows of storage units. "The truth," Lyra replied, moving purposefully toward a central console. "About the Shadow faction." Working quickly, they accessed the classified archives. What they discovered sent a chill through Marcus that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. Documents revealed the existence of a secret alliance between high-ranking military and political leaders from both Terran and Arcanus, a group that called themselves the Shadow faction. Their objective: to manipulate both civilizations into a false peace that would allow them to exploit Arcanesian resources while maintaining control through misinformation and targeted eliminations. The peace-rending journey. Marcus read aloud from one document. "A strategic deception to force Terran surrender to Arcanus, transforming Terran into a resource extraction tool." Further files showed that Lyra wasn't just a ceremonial war bride. She was the only person with evidence of the leadership assassination program, a plan to eliminate Terran Republic leaders who refused to cooperate with the Shadow faction. Most disturbing of all, Marcus discovered his own name on a list marked for elimination due to his access to sensitive information during the Arcanus campaign. "Now you understand," Lyra said softly. "Why I warned you." Before Marcus could respond, alarm sirens began blaring throughout the facility. Security doors slammed shut around the archive, trapping them inside. "They've discovered us," Marcus said, searching frantically for an escape route. "We need to get this information public before they kill you and turn me into a propaganda kaleidoscope," Lyra urged, her eyes reflecting the red warning lights. Working against time, they formulated a desperate plan. Using Marcus's military codes, they accessed the communication array housed within the archive. While Lyra blocked the surveillance cameras, Marcus decoded and began broadcasting the classified documents directly to the Interplanetary Alliance network. "This won't be enough," Lyra warned, glancing at the sealed doors where security forces were already attempting to breach the locks. "They'll cut the transmission before enough people see it. Then we make sure they can't stop it," Marcus replied grimly, initiating a continuous data loop that would maintain the broadcast, even if they were captured. The archive room shuddered as explosive charges detonated against the main door. Smoke grenades planted earlier by Lyra filled the chamber, destroying physical evidence while providing temporary cover. As the documents went public, screens throughout the facility displayed the damning evidence. Alarms blared with increasing urgency as the security breach expanded beyond containment. The doors finally gave way, and they found themselves facing Regional General Marlin and a squad of Capitol guards, weapons drawn. "It's too late," Marcus declared, standing protectively in front of Lyra. "The truth is already out." Lyra leaned close to him, her breath warm against his ear as she whispered, "Now we can only hope the public responds." What followed was chaos beyond anything Marcus had anticipated. The Interplanetary Alliance network erupted with the revelations. News stations broadcasting the evidence of corruption and planned assassinations. While General Marlin initially ordered the immediate execution of both Marcus and Lyra to silence the source, members of the Inter-Party Alliance Council intervened, demanding an investigation before any action could be taken. In the midst of the confusion, an unmarked chopper operated by Alliance emissaries extracted Marcus and Lyra from the facility, narrowly escaping the security forces determined to silence them permanently. Days later, They stood before the interplanetary press, recounting their discovery and the Shadow faction's plans. The Terran Republic was forced to disband the secret cabal manipulating information, and General Marlin was taken into custody pending investigation. Marcus, disillusioned with the military hierarchy that had been so thoroughly corrupted, resigned his commission as a naval officer. "I can better serve justice from outside the system," he declared to the assembled media, "by supporting Lyra in establishing the Interplanetary Transparency Center." Lyra, now recognized as a trusted Arcanesian representative, agreed to work alongside Marcus. As they prepared to depart for their new mission, she took his hand and whispered near his ear, "We won't be safe forever, but at least now, we have each other." The final image of them walking toward the edge of the landing platform, silhouetted against the distant horizon of the Arcanesian star system, carried a hope that transcended their differences, a promise of truth and alliance in a universe where deception had nearly prevailed. As they stood together, facing an uncertain but shared future, Marcus realized that the greatest danger had not been the one Lyra had initially warned him about. It had been the comfortable lies he'd been willing to accept without question. Now, with the truth exposed and their paths intertwined, they stepped forward together into a new chapter of interplanetary relations, one founded on transparency rather than deception. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, as their transport prepared for departure. Lyra's silver-blue features softened into a smile, the first genuine one he had seen from her. "Now we rebuild trust, one truth at a time." And as the engines ignited, carrying them toward their next challenge, Marcus understood that sometimes the most valuable prize of war wasn't a medal or territory. It was the courage to stand for truth, even when that truth threatened everything you thought you knew. The silver-blue skin of Lyra's hand remained firmly clasped in his own, no longer alien, no longer strange, but the touch of an ally in a universe where such connections were the only true defense against the shadows that sought to divide them. "You were right to warn me," Marcus said as the transport lifted off. "But I'm glad I was in danger. Otherwise, we might never have discovered the truth." "The truth was always there," Lyra replied, her eyes reflecting the stars emerging around them. "It just needed someone brave enough to face it." Together, they watched as Marat receded behind them, not as conqueror and conquered, but as partners in a new kind of revolution. One fought not with weapons, but with information and the courage to share it. The console before them displayed incoming messages from across the Alliance, worlds responding to their revelations, demanding accountability, offering support. In that moment, Marcus realized they had started something far greater than themselves, a movement toward a more transparent universe where shadows could no longer thrive in secrecy. "They gave me a war bride," he mused, "but they never expected her to whisper the truth." Lyra's response was simple but profound. "Sometimes the most dangerous gift is the one that awakens you to reality." As their ship accelerated toward the stars, they left behind the old paradigms of conflict and conquest. Whatever challenges awaited them in the vast expanse of space, they would face them together, Terran and Arcanesian, united by a shared commitment to truth in a universe too long manipulated by lies. The whispered warning that had once chilled Marcus to the bone now seemed like the first note of a liberation song, one that would echo across worlds and challenge the powerful to account for their actions. In danger, they had found purpose. In truth, they had found freedom. And in each other, they had found the strength to fight for both. Admiral Corrin's face appeared on the main communication screen as their transport entered hyperspace. "Lieutenant Reed, or should I say, Citizen Reed now," he greeted them. "Your broadcast has caused quite the uproar in the Alliance Council." Marcus leaned forward. "Admiral, I thought you were..." "Dead?" "Yes. That was the official story." The Admiral's weathered face broke into a thin smile. When I discovered what the Shadow faction was planning, I had to disappear to gather evidence. Your actions have finally brought that evidence to light. You knew about all of this? Marcus asked, incredulous. I suspected, but couldn't prove it without risking everything. The faction had operatives everywhere. The Admiral turned his attention to Lyra. Lady Thale, your father would be proud. He died trying to prevent this conspiracy. Lyra's expression remained composed, but Marcus noticed her hands trembling slightly. My father was labeled a traitor to Arcanus, she said softly. Now his name will be cleared. Both our worlds owe you a debt, Admiral Corrin continued. The peace treaty is being renegotiated without the Shadow faction's influence. Real peace might actually be possible now. What about the others on the elimination list? Marcus asked. Are they safe? We're locating them now. Many have been warned. Others brought to secure locations. The Admiral's expression darkened. But we haven't found them all yet. The faction's reach was extensive. After the communication ended, Marcus turned to Lyra. You never told me about your father. There are many things I couldn't tell you, she replied, her gaze distant. Not until I knew I could trust you completely. And now, there are no more secrets between us. Lyra's silver-blue features softened. Only truths to discover together. Their transport continued through the vast emptiness of hyperspace, carrying them toward a future neither had imagined possible just days before. Behind them, the Interplanetary Alliance was in upheaval, old power structures crumbling as the truth forced accountability. They'll try to rebuild, Marcus observed, watching the news reports flooding in from across Alliance space. People like Marlin and his collaborators, they don't surrender power easily. Which is why our work is just beginning, Lyra replied. The Transparency Center will need to remain vigilant. As their ship hurtled through the dimensional fold of hyperspace, carrying them toward their new life, Marcus reflected on how quickly everything had changed. A simple whispered warning had set in motion events that transformed not only his life, but potentially the future of human-Arcanesian relations. Your danger, Lyra said, reading his thoughts, became our opportunity. Marcus took her hand. No longer alien to him, but familiar and essential. To truth, he said simply. To truth, she echoed, her eyes reflecting the dimensional storms of hyperspace. Beautiful, chaotic, and filled with possibility. And to the courage to face whatever dangers come next. The ship's systems hummed around them, steady and reassuring, as they navigated together through the uncertain spaces between worlds, pioneers of a new and more honest future.